Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting the top 15 considerations you should be making when selecting an EDR solution. Uh, First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Nick Jaldevi. I've been with ISA Cybersecurity Inc. for about 8 years, and prior to that, I was at a pretty large utility company in Toronto, where I worked for about 10 years, and ISA was one of my partners that I was always a go-to, so I have a really long-standing relationship with the current company I work for. Um, I've been in, while I was at the utility, I also had the ability to lead the cybersecurity operations team where Endpoint was a really big deal. Not only in the corporate environment, but the SCADA environment too. I don't know if we have any utility folks in the room today, but SCADA was top of mind. You know, when you're always dealing with utilities, you want to make sure that the SCADA endpoints are always secure. But not all the time you can put an AV solution on a SCADA system because of resource power and CPU utilization is a cause. I don't know if anybody in the room today is using legacy AV, but show of hands if anybody's had a complaint from an end user or an application owner where they've complained about CPU and applications not working, and I see some people shaking their heads there. So yes, these are top of mind. But as we move on to the next generation of endpoint, being EDR, our goal really today is to talk about endpoint detection and response. And my goal is to give you the top considerations that you should be looking at when selecting an EDR solution. This is not a sales pitch by any means, but when we talk about the EDR, we're going to be also talking about how we're going to be implementing and installing on these devices and replacing legacy AV. So let's get right into it. The first thing, and by no means this is in order of what you should do from 1 to 15. This is really a thought process on what you should consider going forward in your EDR journey. So when we look at the first one here, organizational needs and goals, we want to ensure, has there been a breach in the environment? So if there has been a breach and you're using legacy type AV, you might want to look at an EDR solution as your next step, or you might have had an IR company come in and pretty sure 100% of the time or 99% of the time that IR company that came in has put in their tools, and that is an EDR solution, whether it be one of the top 3 or the top 5 EDR solutions that are out there today. The next thing you want to look at is when you're looking at an EDR solution, do you have any industry regulations? So anything to do with compliance or business requirements when you're looking at all the different business type organizational needs that you have. We want to make sure that we are providing those outcomes in this EDR solution as well. And then the budget and resources. Today, resources are lacking in many organizations where they're looking at third parties to take care of their endpoint solution going forward. So this is a really top of mind scope and coverage. What are we using? Are we using workstations and servers? How many workstations are we using? Laptops? What kinds of servers are we using? Most EDR tools today are using Windows, Linux, Mac devices in the environment. But then we look at what types of operating systems that are going to be used as well. So, we want to also look at mobile devices or Internet of Things. Mobile devices are up and coming right now in the industry. Now that the endpoint is secured, a lot of organizations are starting to look at mobile as being the next endpoint that they want to secure. either be Android devices or iOS devices. And with the addition of MDM, you really want to put a layer on top of the mobile with a security solution such as an EDR. This will really help solidify that endpoint coverage within the environment. Now, we always talk about bring your own device, and we work with a lot of education organizations from K to 12 to universities. We've also seen a lot of, from the student aspect, bring your own device. So how do we cover those? How do we provide coverage on them, and provide good solutions so that when the student leaves the company, how do we get that licensing back, or let them go on their way with that licensing going forward as well. Legacy devices on EDR, it's a dicey subject right now. AVs typically have been really good on legacy devices, but EDRs, when they put in their hooks in legacy devices and you have homegrown apps, or you have, say, an application that you can't put an EDR on, well, I get that question all the time, and people say to me, well, Nick, how can I secure this device? I can't put EDR on it. Well, there are different solutions that are out there. There could be application control, where you can whitelist and blacklist applications that are going to be installed on that endpoint. And we go back to my example of SCADA. We can't put on an AV on some of these SCADA devices because the nature of the application and the OS level that they're on. So existing infrastructure, we want to make sure that the EDR solution is able to talk to all your platforms. So today, one of the security solutions might be a SIM, it might be a firewall, it might be your ticketing system like ServiceNow. So when we move into the XDR journey, we want to make sure that we're starting to build a platform, right? And when we're building a platform, we want to make sure that there's integration points into your EDR. This is huge, because when there's an incident that comes in to your EDR or other security solutions, we want them all to cohesively be talking together to tell you one story. And this is your next phase in your journey with EDR, and not only with EDR, but with XDR as well, okay? So data collection and privacy, we all have some types of, privacy compliance that we have. We also want to make sure that the EDR solution tenancy, whether it be cloud-based, is available in Canada, right? We don't want some of our telemetry going out to the US or other parts of the world, because our data has to stay within Canadian soil, right? So we want to make sure that which EDR solution we're picking has a ability to stay in Canada and make sure that we have this data to stay here. So deployment architecture, we want to make sure also that we have the ability to have a cloud base or on-premise or even hybrid approach. A lot of companies that I talked to today, they're going to the cloud with their EDR solution. Why? Because it's very quick, policies to implement are very quick, and eradication of an event is very quick on an endpoint. If you were taking an endpoint and trying to contain an endpoint, it can be done within seconds, right? And looking at the scalability factors, looking at what the network impact is, now with EDR, we're looking and seeing that there's very, very minimal impact on the network, where back in the old legacy AV days, this would be a high network impact because you might be doing some rogue scanning on your network, looking for rogue devices, and looking for, I've always had the network guys come to me and say, are you trying to do any rogue type scanning on the network? And Yeah, sometimes we were, because we were looking for those agents that didn't have AV running on it. So the next thing to consider is the agent lightweight? Again, I had proposed right in the beginning of the conversation, have you had an end user ever tell you that your AV was slow? And I had a couple people say, yep, I've seen that before. Or an application owner saying, my application's not working. Well, with EDR today, we're seeing very lightweight CPU utilization, memory, and making sure that we do a POC around these solutions to ensure that it works in your environment and with your critical applications as well. We want to make sure that also the performance impact on the endpoint is up to par. So what I've seen with many of the leading EDR solutions is that we are now getting end users saying, holy cow, like I have like a new laptop. It's running amazing. I don't know what you did to it, but it's running really, really well. And we're getting kudos for it now because of a simple replacement from a legacy type AV to a EDR agent, lightweight agent, okay? So real-time monitoring and alerting, do we need 5x8 or do we need 7x24? It's a question that we have to ask. And you know, what I continuously see is that there are resource constraints in cybersecurity. So maybe you want to use a third-party MSSP that will help you throughout your EDR journey and create those triage, that incident response and detection, that containment that you're looking for going forward. Threat detection techniques. We want to look at the threat detection techniques based on if the EDR is powered by AI. AI is huge. Today we're trying to replace signature-based AV solutions. So everybody knows with legacy type AV, we're only as good as that signature. We're not going to be able to get everything out of the signature when the zero-day attack happens. So when a zero-day attack happens, what is that signature file really going to give you? Well, it's not going to give you anything because it's a zero-day, and the signature file has no clue about what's going on. But with AI and machine learning, we have the ability now to detect right away, right in real time, right? And this is really, really key. And when I look at some of the top EDR solutions that are out there, we are seeing the time to respond be very, very quick. And we're able to contain and kill and quarantine threats much quicker than before. This is very, very big. The next thing you want to see is how the incident is being dealt with from an agent perspective, from the EDR perspective. So you want to see, is it able to do kill and quarantine? Can it remediate on the fly? Some EDR solutions have rollback, where they leverage shadow copies on Windows. A really good tool and demo that I do with some of my customers is when they're looking at a solution is I'll bring up a Windows server and I'll go and just delete shadow copies with that EDR solution. And let's see what happens. It's not a ransomware attack, but it is a symptom of ransomware, right? What is a ransomware going to do? It's obviously going to elevate privileges. It's going to look at if you have any shadow copies so you can't recover from them. And then they're going to put a nice little wallpaper on the screen and say, pay my ransom, and start encrypting your files. So this is very, very key. I urge everyone who is using legacy AV today to go and do that simple tool. I can give you the command. It's delete shadow copies /all. Let's see if your AV detects that. If it detects it, great, you're doing good because you put in some rules in place. You probably have some access protection rules in place that says can't change files or you can't delete shadow copies. Wonderful. But when I show this in a demo to a client, they are wowed because I didn't actually run Lockbit or I didn't actually run a ransomware. I just showed them one simple command that showed containment on a system, that took it off the network, and now they have confidence in knowing that a more sophisticated attack will be able to be detected and responded to based on our policies. Also, the last point here on MITRE ATT&CK, is everybody familiar with MITRE ATT&CK? Perfect. So there's another slide, it's the last consideration that I'll be talking about, is the MITRE ATT&CK ingenuity. But a lot of these detections that we run, like the deletion of shadow copy, will map back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework within the EDR solution. So a lot of EDRs map back to MITRE, and they'll give you links to go to MITRE to read up more about it and give you some more reference points as well. So incident investigation and response. Our SOC loves this slide because they do a lot of this. And we basically have our EDR solution in place for our clients. We manage them for our clients. But obviously, on a daily basis, we have to go through our incident response investigation. We have to look at some of our workflows that we have in place. And every single day, our workflows are kind of changing because we have to ensure that we are getting better with the times. We can't stay stagnant in the EDR world because the EDR world is every day changing. And there's things that are changing where we need to automate our threat hunting capabilities. We have people that are eyes on glass, but you might have people that are eyes on glass as well. That works sometimes, but we need to also automate how we're doing threat hunting. So if we have known adversaries or known threat actors that we know we have IOCs for, we can go and put that in a rule saying, hey, if you see this in my environment, throw an incident at the EDR solution and send alerts to me so then I can go and do my investigation more thoroughly and more actively on the solution itself and within my environment. This is very key. Having automated threat hunting within an EDR solution will save you time, it'll save you money, and if you have really good threat intelligence that you are feeding information from and not just your EDR solution, and you're building rules to automate, you will be better off in the long run. So user training and skill set. So we talked about eyes on glass. We want to make sure that our team is trained, right? We want to make sure that they're getting the training that they need. We want to make sure that they understand how to run the EDR solution, but not only do we want to make sure that they know how to run the EDR solution by administration, but we want to make sure that they know how to detect and respond to threats when they happen. We might have tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s. We might even have, an incident responder within an organization, or might be using a third-party organization like an MSSP. We want to ensure that everybody at different levels know how to react to a threat. This is very important. I was at a conference in Vegas last week. Everybody hear about the MGM? Yeah? Okay. So I'm not an MGM member at all, but I did go to the MGM resort just to kind of check out what was going on, and kiosks were down, and they were checking in people with clipboards again, and it was pretty crazy what I saw there. And ironically, I was there for a cybersecurity conference, which was even more weird. Seeing a kiosk that is down across the board and people lining up out the door was something to see. I didn't stay there. I stayed at Planet Hollywood instead. So anyways, long story short, at the conference, they said, now it's only taking attackers what took them months and days. Now it's taking them minutes, and they gave an average time of 79 minutes for an attacker to get into an organization. Think about that for a second. We sometimes take days to go and threat hunt or look for things or investigate, right, for threats within our environment. We are relying on our tools to tell us what's happening, but we're also taking proactive measures to make sure that we know what's going on. We know our environment. We know the anomalies of our environment, what's changing, what's not changing. We know what's going on. So it's very important to train our staff, not only within the solution, but within how to threat hunt. Threat hunting is very, very key in the success of EDR. I can't stress that enough. If you're relying on the EDR to do everything, you're already behind the game. So we get into the implementation stage of EDR. Initially, I like to use like a 6-phase approach when implementing EDR. First one is obviously, let's know who the stakeholders are of the project or the EDR solution. And the next thing is, let's talk about what the initial scope looks like. What does that pilot group look like, right? I don't know about you guys, but I like going after the IT guys first. They're the ones that are gonna always complain. They're gonna tell you where their applications that they own are not working well. And they're gonna tell you there's performance impact. I can't put this on my systems. You better fix this before I put this agent on my system. All right, no problem. So we go and do that with the EDR solutions. And I talk about literally the 5 top ones. And not here to talk about solutions today, but if you see me outside, definitely willing to have that discussion with you. We want to have a pilot group. We want to let that soak in for about 2 weeks. We want to make sure that things are going well. We want to do some initial scanning. In EDR, full disk scans are kind of a thing of a past. You want to do them once, but you don't need to continuously do them because the EDR solution itself is smart enough to see when there's suspicious activity happening on the endpoint. It's already learning the endpoint. It knows what the endpoint is capable of. It knows what the endpoint is doing on a daily basis. Now, when you couple that with AI, now we start telling a better story. So gone are the days of full disk scanning. You can do them. It's available. It's a feature within EDR, but it's unnecessary. So after the pilot phase, we want to start the mass deployment phase. And I always tell my customers, always start with baby steps first, because you don't know what you're going to learn. Sometimes we don't learn everything out of our pilot group. We've done our fine-tuning within the pilot group, but now we want to start with a small number of endpoints to start with, and then we ratchet up from there to make sure that we are gaining ground and we're keeping the lights on within the organization. Talked about the scanning, sensitive endpoints, the crown jewels of the company. Those are always done last. Never do them first. Don't put them even part of your pilot group. Do them last, because what you've learned throughout that journey of the 80% of the fleet that you did, you've already fine-tuned most of it. When you get to the sensitive endpoint, you're already miles ahead of the game, right? So you want to make sure that the kinks are all out before you go and implement on your sensitive endpoints, your crown jewels. Continuous monitoring and updates. So with EDR and legacy endpoint, there was always different versions and upgrades that needed to be done. The beautiful thing about EDR agents is you can stay N-2 and be okay in the security game on your endpoint. You need to stay N-2 though. You can't be N-3, N-4, N-6, because then your security posture is then going a little bit at risk. Why do I say this? Well, every EDR vendor is implementing more and more security measures and techniques within their new agent. Their agent does everything. It's a single agent approach, but their agent does everything. You're not installing module on module on module. The agent does everything. So keeping on top of the agents is very, very key to your success of keeping your company safe within your endpoint. You want to ensure that it's N-2, and you want to ensure that your policies that are in place are up to date as well, okay? The next piece is you want to keep an eye on the blogs and the support side of each of these EDR vendors. I can't say enough. I've been working with very many EDR vendors in the last few years, and I come from a background of legacy AV, and I see such a big change in how support has taken the approach to EDR. And what they've done is, almost on a daily basis, I'm seeing KB articles getting updated, seeing more threat intelligence feeds that they're putting into their KB articles. And now you can take that data and implement it in your own console for automation, right? So I can't stress enough, keep an eye on the blogs, keep an eye on the support sites. These KB articles will help you within your journey going forward and keep you guys safe. The last piece is a health check. I don't know if, you know, in your legacy or in your current environments, that if you have a third party do an assessment of your EDR or your legacy AV, but you want to make sure that you have some eyes coming in from the outside looking at, hey, are the best practices in place? What happens in EDR or on the endpoint is, after time, you might go and put in multiple exclusions, and exclusions will grow. And as time grows, what's going to happen is I'll go back to an administrator in the AV console and say, hey, how come these exclusions are here? And the guy will say, well, I don't know, I wasn't here before, so I don't know what the exclusions are. Oh, so we should remove them, right? No, we can't remove them because I don't know what's going to happen if you remove them. Well, we need to make sure that we have some kind of tracking of these exclusions that are going into place. We need to ensure that we're doing health checks quarterly, at least quarterly. I like to do them monthly. Make sure that things are in place and your best practice policies are in place. This is going to keep you safe. So compliance and reporting. Every EDR tool needs some type of reports, right? This is key to success and key to your C-level execs, your directors, your managers, and even tech engineers. We need to know what's going on in the environment. The best way that I tell tech engineers how to run their EDR is to set up dashboards, because dashboards are free. You can have multiple dashboards. You can have one for your workstations. You can have one for your servers. You can have one for your cloud. So by the single pane of glass, you can actually see everything that's happening in your environment with a really nice dashboard. The beauty is there are widgets. So you can move them, you can make it look beautiful, you can tell a really nice story to one of your C-level execs, and they'll appreciate you for it, because you can also have RBAC rules, which are role-based access control rules, that allow your executives to have dashboard-only access, to look at the console. So they don't have to see the nitty-gritties, but what they can see is all the good work that you're doing within the EDR solution. So vendor evaluation and support. We want to make sure that the vendor has good reputation, right? Look at Gartner, look at Forrester, look at MITRE. I'm going to be talking about MITRE in a second here. You want to make sure that the vendor also has a really good roadmap. You want to make sure that they have features that are going to be, you know, opening your eyes to new things, new requirements, outcomes that you're looking for. in your journey within EDR and XDR? Are they a thought leader? Are they really well known in the industry? You know, I had a customer come up to me the other day. He said, "Nick, I'm running WebRoot." And I said, "What? What's WebRoot?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, it's a really great AV." And I said, "Well, let's talk." And he said, "Okay, let's talk." So we had a discussion, and he was blown away by so many other EDR solutions that would better his environment. And now we're doing a POC and showing him all the good things that EDR solutions can do. We don't choose, we're vendor agnostic, but we want to make sure that we position our customers for the best solution that fits their business requirements. Lastly, I wanted to talk about, is everybody familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK Ingenuity Report? Show of hands. All right, some people. I would urge everyone to take, who's not familiar with a picture of this slide, and go back and look at the MITRE ATT&CK Ingenuity Report. For the last 4 years, there's been a sophisticated attack that MITRE has been doing, noted up here on the slides. And what they do is they invite participants in the EDR space to come to these evaluations. It's really cool to see how each of these vendors do and what their results are. But what I urge everybody to look at is not only just the results. Look at what they needed to bring each of these vendors to the table to detect and respond to these threats. It's very key. I had a customer come up to me and say, "Oh, you know, this vendor did so well." I said, "Well, did you look at what types of modules and types of solutions that they had to bring under this umbrella to detect and respond to this threat?" Yes, they had good results, but at the same time, they had to spend a lot of money to get where they wanted to be. Money, cost is everything, right? For many organizations. You can't have all the bells and whistles. But if you can do it with the single module and a single agent and get really good results, that's maybe where you want to be looking. So I urge everybody to go and look at the MITRE report here at this link. I can send it to you after the meeting if you need, but also look at what the policies and the configuration was to stop these threats and detect these very, very sophisticated malicious threats. As a parting thought, legacy solutions are a thing of the past, really, to emerging threats. I urge everyone who's not using an EDR to start evaluating and maybe looking and doing your own research on EDR. And if you have any questions, by all means, here to always help. Again, my name is Nick Jaldevi, and thank you for your time today. Any questions? Go ahead.
When you're evaluating what EDR to provide to a customer, a lot of the solutions come packaged with all other services like a SIEM, RMDM solutions. So, how do you score those against each other? Where one solution might have great EDR, but your SIEM isn't great, and your MDM is good, and the other one might be completely opposite of that. So, how do you make that decision?
So your business requirement is your EDR. You want EDR first. Before, if you're looking at replacing or bringing in a SIEM, let's say, SIEMs are very expensive. They're a lot of work. It takes time to get to the end state of what you want within a SIEM. But EDR is a quick win for you, right? So what you want to be looking at and evaluating is EDR first, and then those other features can come in, or those other solutions can come in at the end. I think I've had this question before, and I want to make sure that the customer has built that foundation first. The foundation is really Endpoint, right? all the stuff around it are things that are layered on top of it. So when you're evaluating, you really want to evaluate the EDR solution within the vendor first. And then if that really fits the bill, then you also have to look at what types of integration points you have within your organization already. And it was one of the slides that I did show up here is how you're building a platform. When you start building a platform, you get to start telling that XDR story, right? How is everything coming together? I have EDR, I have SIM, I have my ticketing system, I have intrusion prevention systems, I have all of that stuff in place. And when you're evaluating, make sure that you're looking at the vendor for its EDR and not those other capabilities, because yes, you can get those capabilities anywhere, but can they integrate together? That's the big question. Go ahead. Yeah. That's a great question. So in legacy world, when you're going to put AV on a VMware server, and I don't know, your host might have, say, 50 VMs. Let's just take that as an example. Well, that's 50 times the resource power that that host will need to do all the scanning. Now, there are solutions out there that put it right at the host level, right? And it'll do agentless scanning for all your VMs, right? Now, in the EDR world, it's a little bit different. Because the agent is so lightweight, that resource power, you don't even see it anymore. They actually have, when you're doing your deployment for your VMs, they actually have switches now that say you can tell the EDR agent that you're actually installing on a VMware server. So it knows that, hey, okay, I'm going on a VM. I know I need to keep my resourcing power and memory at a minimum. And so your host, I've done this a million times with customers where they're like, prove it to me. And I'm like, all right, here's the agent, go install it on all 50 of those servers. And every single time they've come back and said, there's actually, you can't even see it. It's that lightweight. Yeah, go ahead.
With the new, you mentioned that AI and ML is actually going to provide additional protection on 0 days attack. How does that, how does it do? Like, how does the EDR handle those?
So EDR will come with your reputational-based scanning. It's actually, it's an engine that runs, but there's multiple AI engines and machine learning engines within each EDR solution. I've yet to see one engine that does it all, right? So I'll give you some examples. Within the EDR engine, that single lightweight engine, you'll have about 10 to 20 different engines that are running. One will be static AI. One will be reputational-based AI. One will be lateral movement. So all of these combined, there's another one that's really, really hitting the market that has been resonating well with a lot of organization is interactive threat, right? So what is happening in a PowerShell script? Not looking at PowerShell, but looking at inside what's happening within PowerShell, right? So when I run delete shadow copies all, I get a detection right away, right? And it's based on that interactive threat engine that's running within the environment. To answer your question around how does it do it? Well, these threat intelligence feeds are being updated by the minute, right? So when you're a customer, say, of said solution, you're not only just a customer, but all the other customers that are sharing this threat intel, you're also getting that threat intel as well. So if someone else is hit, you're already getting that coverage within your solution. You won't see it, but it's happening on your agent. And it's very important, by the way, I brought up in one of those slides, was keeping your agent up to date, right? The agent being up to date will save you so much time. It's not funny. I've gone into customers that have EDRs and they're N-6 and they're like, well, I was hit with this. And I'm like, all right, let's do it again. Let's go to at least N-1. We'll get the same type of attack that you were run with, and we're gonna see if it's gonna detect it 100% of the time, right? You wanna stay with the flow. Now, with EDR solutions, you will have to update your agent a little bit more than normal, but they're very easy to update. You do it through the console, you can do it on a test bed of, say, 20 machines, and within minutes, and I mean minutes, you can install the newest EDR agent on all of your machines. We had a customer that got breached not too long ago, and they're like, well, we got to get off of this solution because it's not working for us. 500 endpoints, we were done in an hour, right? So it's very, very simple. If you have a good third-party solution to deploy, like an SCCM or GPO, then you're good to go. One more question? No? We can take it offline? Okay. I'm getting cut off. Thank you, everyone.